Hey there, thank you for checking out this edition of R&R's Ask the Expert. Today I am very excited to be joined by the restoration lawyer, Ed Cross. He has a new title these days, the Restoration Advocate. He was appointed as the Restoration Industry Association's Restoration Advocate in fall of 2019. That's part of the RIA's Advocacy and Government Affairs Committee, but he's really acting on behalf of the entire industry, not just the RIA, and there are some amazing things going on within the AGA. So I am excited to have Ed here to talk about the latest with the AGA, what's going on at the end of 2020, what 2021 is going to look like, and all of that stuff. So I'm going to toss it over to Ed. Ed, thank you for joining me. Can you tell us a little bit about your role as the restoration advocate and the history of the AGA and what it's all about?
Okay, well, thank you very much for having me today, Michelle, and thank you for all of your hard work. You do such a great job disseminating information and knowledge out to the industry. You serve a vital role, and thank you for all that you do. We're really grateful. We owe you a debt of gratitude for sure.
Thank you.
So for those who don't know, the RIA formed the Advocacy and Government Affairs Committee in order to unite the industry to address some of the challenges that face the industry on a regular basis, particularly with regard to claims settlement practices. And Mark Springer, our fearless leader, wrote a great article, kind of a manifesto outlining what some of the problems are. And I was fortunate enough to have been chosen as the founding chairman of the committee. The chairperson now is Katie Smith, RIA's president-elect. She's doing a great job on that. And with her help, I was able to devote more of my efforts, in addition to my full-time law practice representing restorers, to being the contractor advocate, RIA's restoration advocate. And my job is to campaign for the positions adopted by the association.
Okay, so what are some of the biggest strides that you have seen the AGA take in 2020?
Well, the first one that we addressed was standardized pricing platforms, and restorers have been struggling with this problem for a long time. And they are able to see that prices for certain trades in certain markets have remained flat over the course of many years, when we knew that the costs of delivering services had actually gone up. In other words, the standardized prices were not keeping pace with what was actually happening in the market. The problem compounded by the fact that many insurance companies tend to look at Xactimate prices as universal prices or as caps. And we have a lot of adjusters telling a lot of restorers, my manager won't allow me to pay anything more than Xactimate prices. So we brought this to Xactware's attention, and we've had some very, very productive dialogue, particularly between Mark Springer, RIA's president, and Mike Fulton, Xactware's president, about some of these issues. And one of the things that Mr. Fulton pointed out is that if an insurance company takes the position that it will, across the board, only pay Xactimate prices and that it expects the policyholder to pay the difference, it's doing two things. One is it is misusing Xactware, misapplying the tool because it was not designed to be universal prices. And secondly, it's abdicating its responsibility under the contract of insurance. And one thing that tends to get lost a lot in these discussions is the contract of insurance. That's what controls. We want to look at the contract of insurance as the law for the claim. And almost all policies require insurance carriers to pay the usual and customary cost of the work. In some policies, instead of usual and customary, it will say reasonable, but most of them say usual and customary or words to that effect. The usual and customary price is not one price, okay? It can be a range of prices, and those prices need to be determined based on the needs of the customer, the particular circumstances of the job, the limitations in performing the work, the contractor's target margins, what a willing buyer will pay a willing seller, both being in possession of the relevant facts, neither being under a compulsion to buy or sell. And what we hope is that adjusters will begin to understand that prices in Xactimate are not always necessarily going to be the usual and customary cost for this particular job in this particular market. That's not what it was intended for. And we are spreading the word and have highlighted the fact in 2020 that the Xactware end user license agreement states that Xactimate users, including insurance companies and their partners, shall not prohibit deviation from Xactimate prices. So AGA launched a series of industry briefings, and Mark Springer conducted some very fruitful, in-depth conversations with Mike Fulton, who was very cooperative, and we're grateful to Mike for the collaboration and the open dialogue to address some of these very important issues. And he outlined that Xactware shifted its paradigm in terms of pricing calculations, partly in response to information that had been provided by AGA. We have seen a number of good results from this. Things are improving, but there's still a considerable amount of work that needs to be done. So the first thing was progress on pricing, and we hope and expect that restorers are seeing improvement in that area. The next area that we got into was third-party consultants. And these are entities that are hired by insurance companies to come in and review a contractor's work, review a scope of work, review a bill, and make recommendations to an insurance company. We convened a task force of incredibly talented industry experts to formulate a set of positions. We spent literally hundreds of hours refining, editing, and collaborating on these positions with third-party consultants who are actually in the business. And we came up with a great set of positions that were published for RIA members only, just like the industry briefings that are on video I mentioned a moment ago with regard to pricing. Those are RIA member benefits only. And if anybody's listening and is not yet a member of RIA, this is the time to join, because the membership will absolutely pay for itself. And so we published a very extensive list of vetted, peer-reviewed position statements regarding the role of third-party consultants in the claims handling process. And it's important to point out that restorers should endeavor to be cooperative with insurance companies and their partners to help facilitate a smooth resolution of a claim and reduce the amount of inconvenience that they experience in the process. We point out in the position statements that in most states, you actually need to have an adjuster's license in order to adjust claims. And we want to be on the lookout for third-party consultants who step out of the role of a consultant and actually start adjusting claims. And in our virtual conference where I conducted an interview with JS Held, we talked about what exactly is the difference between consulting and adjusting, and I urge everybody to take a look at that. That's part of a new program that I rolled out this year called Face the Advocate. Face the Advocate is where leading industry stakeholders respond to positions taken by the Restoration Industry Association. And so I interview people such as senior executives from JS Held, and we talk about the nitty-gritty brass tacks of pricing issues and scope issues and the role of consultants and all of that. Our third-party consultant position statements set out that consultants and insurance companies cannot unilaterally dictate a price that a contractor is going to charge. That price is between the contractor and the client. And if it is the usual and customary cost, if it's in the reasonable range of prices, then the insurance company needs to pay that and the consultant should bless that price. The right price, the usual and customary price, is not necessarily the lowest price in town. Like I said, it is a range of prices. One other thing that we point out in the position statements is the very important distinction among the different contracts that are at play. So the contract of insurance is a different contract from the contract that the restorer has with the client, obviously, all right? We can't dictate the terms of the insurance company's contract with the consultant. Similarly, the insurance company can't dictate the terms of our contract with our client. Everybody needs to respect each other's contracts. A restorer, when you get right down to it, at the end of the day, is not legally required to provide any document or perform any act for an insurance company or any third party unless the restorer has committed to provide that information in a contract. And usually there's no such contract on that. A TPA relationship, for example, would be an exception to that. But a lot of restorers feel very put upon by these consultants who they feel are forcing them to do certain things. And what we lay out in these position statements is they cannot force you to do these things, all right? You need to charge a reasonable price for your work and you need to try to cooperate, but they can't force you to divulge your receipts and your cost information, for example, unless you're working on a cost plus basis, which restoration contractors almost never do. So we presented these positions to John Held, Adrian Frank, and Sarah Rayleigh, the three top restoration executives at JS Held, which is one of the biggest, probably the biggest consulting company out there, in our Face the Advocate interview that's available for RIA members. And you can see their responses to these positions. And they have essentially affirmed these and said that they are reasonable. And now we need to get the word out to everybody so everybody else really understands that these main principles that are in there, although we don't agree with JS Held on every point, okay, the main concepts we've really reached consensus on, and that's a really important step to start to move things forward. So then what we're going to do with that is we're in the planning stages, if we get enough investments, to form an AGA academy where we actually train restorers how to use these things out in the field. And we hope everyone will consider investing in AGA because of that. The third big accomplishment for the year, as I hope everybody is aware of, is our TPA scorecard. We surveyed nearly 1,000 different restoration companies about their experiences dealing with TPAs. And we specifically named the 10 biggest ones in the scorecard, and they reported back to us their level of satisfaction with fees, geographic coverage, credentialing, contractor services, and so on. And then the scores were weighted, and the highest of all the weighted scores was a 59 out of 100. Nobody even got up to a 60. So I'm using the scorecard now to open a dialogue with restoration industry stakeholders, with the TPAs, about some of these issues and ways that the TPA contractor relationship can be improved. And soon we're going to be having some Face the Advocate episodes come out where I'm actually discussing some of these issues with the TPAs.
Love it. All right. So my next question, you've answered it a little bit already, but just in the second half of 2020, I have seen some larger restoration companies, as well as other TPAs, carriers, consultants kind of step into the AGA conversation. So what do you believe is drawing more people into the conversation, and how do you believe that this greater involvement on this level is going to help the AGA's momentum going forward?
Mm-hmm. Good question. So I think the first part of the answer is the way that the AGA established itself as a viable force when it came to the discussion about pricing and Xactimate. And there's a number of things we did publicly on kind of a large scale to say, hey, AGA is here and it's not going away. And that's kind of one of the problems that this industry faces. When an initiative comes up, excuse me, sometimes it doesn't last. People don't stick with it. And what I think we've really proven is the steadfastness of this and the fact that this is really locked in as the RIA priority going forward for a number of years. Now, with that foundation laid, once we came out with the TPC position statements, this was absolutely groundbreaking. And this is what helped to draw in a lot of attention from a number of very significant players and a number of the largest restoration companies out there who are now working with us and getting involved on a much more serious level, not just in terms of providing human resources, but in terms of providing financial resources as well. And once they saw the Face the Advocate interview from the virtual conference and the productivity of our dialogue with JS Held, I think that's what really helped to turn the corner for most of them.
All right, so I want to loop back to the position papers and talk a little bit more about those. I think it's important that restorers understand that these aren't long standards. These aren't big, elaborate pieces, documents in the industry. These are clear, concise, short, sometimes a page, a few pages. And
one page.
Yes. And there's a lot of value in these, and you have to be an RIA member to get a hold of these, but they bring a lot of value. So can you talk a little bit about what position papers there are out there now, and what ones are coming, and the value behind them?
Yeah, sure. So the very first one that came out was a position paper regarding third-party administrators and the position that a restorer can and should take in the event that a TPA is presenting a roadblock or trying to dictate a scope, for example, and the steps that a contractor can and should take to try to get resolution with the TPA. The second set was the third-party consultant position statements that came out. There are 8 of them in all. And we talk about everything from pricing to what happens in the event that there's an undisputed balance that's due. We see that a lot. And an insurance company will agree, hey, we owe you $100,000 on this, but your bill is $120,000. We'll give you the $100,000 if you agree to accept that as payment in full. No, it shouldn't happen that way. If anybody, whether you're an insurance company or not an insurance company, if you know that you owe somebody $100,000, pay them the $100,000. In fact, in many states, it's legally required to do that. So the big robust set that's been published so far is the TPC position statements. We are also in the final editing stages of a very important position statement regarding Xactimate prices and when and how a contractor should deviate from those prices and when insurance companies and their partners should agree to that. And then hopefully, if we have sufficient support and investments from the industry, I think that we will also be seeing some position statements regarding TPAs. And I'm going to be taking careful notes during my dialogue with the TPAs to figure out some ways that we can bridge some of those gaps and narrow the issues. That's a big part of this, is just kind of peeling the onion away a little bit. We did that very extensively with JS Held. And what I find, much to my joy, is that at the end of the day, there's not really as much disagreement there as we had originally thought. And there's some little core point, and maybe we can negotiate something on that or tweak something on that to help the claims settlement process go more smoothly.
All right. So that's a lot of what's happened with the AGA and what's going on right now. So what are some of the big goals for 2021?
Well, I would love to get to a point where insurance adjusters understand that Xactimate prices are not universal prices. That's a really big one. Another big one we haven't talked about yet is assignments of benefits. And, you know, AOBs get kind of a bad rap. And one of the things that I am really going to be pushing hard for in 2021 is to improve the image of the AOB. A lot of bad stuff happened down in Florida. There was an unusual law in Florida, and there were accusations that that law was used for abuse. Other states don't have laws like that. And my goal for 2021 is to see to it that most adjusters at major insurance companies understand that an assignment of benefits is something that's valid and enforceable and needs to be honored. Adjusters say that's an agreement between you and your customer. The insurance company is not a party to that. Wrong. They're not understanding what's going on. When you go to a doctor's office, you sign an assignment of benefits if you have health insurance that allows the doctor to collect directly from the insurance company. In fact, that's kind of a convenience. That's a benefit that you get, so you don't have to handle that paperwork. So we need to really spread the word on this and train contractors in how to use an assignment of benefits to their benefit. So RIA is going to be publishing a short synopsis of the law of every state that explains how an assignment of benefits is enforceable in that state. And I'm working on, in my law business, I'm working on a brand new and improved assignment, and we're expanding it beyond just assignment of benefits, all right? It's now, what I'm now calling them is assignment of insurance rights. We want more than just the benefits. We want to have the right to be able to bring a legal claim against the insurance company in the event that the insurance company breaches the contract of insurance or does not act in good faith. That gives us an opportunity to negotiate directly with the insurance company. And restorers out there, please hear me when I say this. If your contract merely says that the policyholder instructs the insurance company to make you a payee on the check, that's a direction of payment. That's not an assignment of benefits, all right? That makes a very difficult case for you to make a claim directly against the insurance company. It makes it easy for the insurance company to slam the door in your face. You want to have an assignment of the legal title. This is a transfer of ownership of the claim, so you can step into the shoes of the policyholder to make that claim directly against the insurance company. So AOBs are a big part of it. I hope that we could get to a point somehow, some way in the world of TPAs that TPAs are not collecting referral fees on jobs that they don't refer. Now, I know they don't want to do this, all right? And I understand why they don't want to do it. And there's some things that we need to try to negotiate on that. But it would seem to me it's logical. If you're not referring a job, you don't have good grounds to collect a referral fee. Now, I understand the contract says that you can get it, but also understand, on the other hand, we've got hardworking restorers out there spending hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on marketing, and they're getting jobs directly. They're getting the work organically through their own marketing efforts, yet they're under this umbrella of the TPA agreement? Well, because this happened to be in your region or it's the carrier that you're signed up with, now I have to pay you a referral fee. Well, the big motivation that most of my clients tell me about to sign up for a TPA is job volume. In other words, it saves their marketing costs, all right? But if they're spending the money on the marketing and that marketing is successful and they're getting the jobs themselves directly without any intervention or help from the TPA, should the TPA really be collecting a referral fee for that? This is going to be a tough negotiation, but it's something that I want to take a hard look at. So another thing I want to accomplish lastly is to get more of the major third-party consultants like Young and Associates and Meridian to come on to Face the Advocate and to talk to us about their impressions and their views of our third-party consultant position statements. I hope everyone understands that the position statements are living documents. All right. The TPC papers are a first draft. That's a first edition. And we continue to solicit feedback from people. We're going to refine them. We're going to improve them. We're going to edit them. But we're doing our best to deliver a very high quality product.
Okay. And there's a lot of products here. There is a lot to take advantage of for RIA members and people that want to be more involved in this. So how can restorers get involved in the RIA and further into the AGA now that they've heard about all of the benefits?
Please go to restorationindustry.org. You'll see a description in there by clicking on the advocacy tab. That will tell you more about what the AGA is working on. It will give you links so you can read the advocacy reports that allow you to kind of track as time goes on, the different things that are going on, the different task forces. We have task forces for pricing, third-party consultants, third-party administrators, investments, and some other issues that are kind of on the drawing board right now. And there is an investments section in there. And this can't happen without money. RIA is doing a wonderful job of running this in a very lean and mean fashion, but it's a tremendously time-consuming exercise to do all of this work, and it requires money. And contractors have suggested a guideline investment of $100 per $1 million in annual revenue. That means if a restoration company is doing $5 million a year in gross revenue, the recommended investment is just $500. We believe $500 for a $5 million company is a manageable and affordable expense. And we hope everybody will join the RIA by visiting restorationindustry.org. Becoming a member, because it opens up access to these members-only benefits, and the membership pays for itself on day one.
Yes, it does. And there's a lot of other benefits in this video. We're talking about the AGA, but there's also so many continuing education certifications and new things that the RIA is working on through that as well. The contents law specialist and the fire law specialist, and these different certifications that really prove that you're a restorer that cares and is educated and knows what you're doing. So a lot of value in the RIA. Okay, Ed, anything else that we missed that you want to add into this?
I hope everyone will stay safe in 2021. Be particularly careful about worker safety and the transmission of COVID-19 among your workforce. This is an increasingly serious issue. I highly recommend that restorers actually get a written agreement from their employees, where the employees are agreeing in writing that they're going to follow company safety protocols, they're going to obey company rules for masks and social distancing, that they are going to immediately report to their superior if they have symptoms, or if they've been exposed to someone with symptoms, or if they've been exposed to somebody who is COVID-19 positive. And I hope everybody stays safe and has a happy holiday season. And we are going to see great things happening in 2021. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Ed.